Join us this week for Chris Schmidt. He's the USO Area Director for the USO of Illinois. Some fascinating discussion on the USO of Illinois and what the USO really does for the local troops right here in our backyard at the Great Lakes Naval Center. It's a fascinating discovery.
You get to learn a lot through the discussion of what it really means to serve, and you gain a whole new appreciation for the military and what they do for all of us citizens.
Well, now let's get into it. We'd like to welcome Chris Schmidt, Area Director for USO of Illinois. Chris, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thanks for having me, Ray. Both of you. Appreciate it.
Now, Chris, most people know what the USO is, but they probably don't know your story. How did you end up leading the USO of Illinois?
Well, my personal story with the USO goes back growing up in a military family. My father was Army Special Forces. After he got out of the military, he was a police officer in Southern California and actually grew up down the street from Bob Hope. And my best friend lived a couple doors down. And so in a strange way, USO via Bob Hope and his connection with USO was ever present in my life. Years forward, when I decided to enlist in the United States Army myself after high school, I vividly remember the USO volunteers standing in front of the Trailways bus at Fort Knox, Kentucky, ushering me onto the bus as we headed to basic training. And kind of as you go on from there, USO has been present in my life through my service and through people who I knew that I served with kind of my entire life. Lived my professional life and career doing a number of things, found myself a board member with a USO location in Seattle, and ultimately that presented an opportunity to come on and work as an employee, essentially, for USO as the executive director, now area director for USO based out of the upper Midwest. On the higher level, my understanding of that connection with the USO is really the story of USO proper. USO has existed for 85 years. In 1941, the USO was chartered by Congress at the direction of the President of the United States to support our service members and their families as we were about to go to war in World War II. And USO has existed ever since to support the people who wear the uniform of our nation, the less than 1% of Americans who serve in the United States military and their families. And today we do that through over 250 locations around the world, and take care of our service members and their families, whether they're on land or at sea, on Navy vessels right now in harm's way.
Chris, can you talk about how important the USO and what it really does during times like we're currently in?
Absolutely. USO, as a nonprofit, is, again, like I said, charged with taking care of our service members and their families, providing morale-lifting services to them here at home and around the world, wherever their mission takes them. And it's also a way to connect those who don't serve, who don't have a direct connection with the military, both by being aware, following the USO, understanding whether it's providing a meal for service members when they return from a deployment, standing by their side as they head out on a deployment, or a ship going out on a deployment, and then engaging with communities, like-minded people and organizations who provide the resources to USO, again, as a nonprofit, to be able to do that work. And that connection to family, home, country, and community is, again, where a lot of the magic happens, and it's where amazing relationships and amazing advocacy emanate from. And I couldn't be more thankful and grateful to the participating members of the then Barbecue for the Troops, now Drive for the Troops, through the Chicago Automobile Trade Association and its member dealers, and quite candidly to you both, to Ray Auto Group and Fox Lake, for being founders of that effort through Drive for the Troops 13 years ago now.
Oh, thank you. It was an honor to be part of that as it was kind of starting, and you all brought it to us, and it was an easy decision to adopt, and many of our dealers do it today that are all over Chicago, but our family really takes it to heart because we have a connection to...
a lot of family connection.
So it's important to us.
So there's a saying out there that says that military service is a family business. And I think for me, that comes back to that less than 1% of Americans who have raised their hand in service to our nation, and the people who stand by them, their families, friends, neighbors, coworkers, and you are emblematic of that for certain.
What's something you've learned about military families that civilians often don't appreciate?
I think it's a fantastic question, and one that sits at what we would call the military-civilian divide. And again, our job and our advocacy and the storytelling that goes on within the space wide is so important, is part of the answer to that question. I think the number one thing is that military members take on service and sacrifice in ways that most people don't understand. Military members move around a lot. When you first enlist in the military, and we'll use the Navy as an example because every young American who joins the United States Navy and goes to boot camp does that right in our backyard, right here in Great Lakes, Chicago, in Lake County. Those individuals are choosing to put their life on the line for their fellow Americans. They're leaving home, oftentimes for the first time, on an amazing adventure that's going to take them places they don't even know where that will be. And they do that with complete and total commitment to their fellow Americans to take on that ambiguity, something that most of us don't have to do. We don't wake up every day wondering where we're going to be next week. We kind of have a plan in mind. When you're in the military, you literally don't know where you're going to be next week. You're going to go where the mission takes you, and you're going to do that with self-sacrifice in mind.
And you've met thousands of service members. Are there common qualities you notice amongst them?
I think that the selflessness obviously stands out. Number one, USO, not only as a nonprofit, but as a volunteer-driven organization, benefits from the selfless hours and hours of volunteering that individuals make. One thing that I think is fascinating is about 50% of our volunteers at Naval Station Great Lakes, at our USOs, are actually active duty Navy service members. So not only are they giving to their country and to their fellow Americans, but they're actually giving back to their fellow sailors by choosing to go into the USO on their free time and volunteer to serve a meal, host a program, or just welcome people in with a smile on their face when they're not on duty.
What are ways the USO interacts with service people, and how does it assist?
That's a great question. I think there's two key touch points there. Number one would be obviously that, as you mentioned, the United States Navy has not been involved in a naval conflict at the scale at which we are at the moment since World War II. That is a very long time. And so when we see it on the news and we see the headlines, I think for everybody to keep in mind that those are our fellow Americans, our young Americans who've chosen, again, to serve in the United States Navy, who are in harm's way right now as we speak. And the USO, over the last 2 years, has completed a project we call the Naval Support Initiative and installed USO centers on now over 24 Navy vessels, including every active aircraft carrier in our naval fleet. It couldn't have been at a better time with that conflict emerging and with our sailors on these vessels and carrier strike groups scattered across the two Gulf areas. When you walk into the USO on an aircraft carrier, you're not walking on steel. You're not on duty. You're not on general quarters. You're in a space with soft sofas and wood floors and places where you can use the internet to dial back home and stay connected with your family and your loved ones. And then on land, I mentioned we have over 250 locations around the world. That includes those Navy vessels, but the vast majority of those are USO centers on the ground, including in Jordan, where we know 24 hours ago there was a missile strike and casualties occurred tragically. And USO staff are there, and they have been in other areas in the theater that we generally don't disclose, but providing that support and that connection to our service members. And oftentimes it's not the big things you would think about that really impact service members the most. I can speak for myself when I was an Army officer. Things like wipes and Q-tips and sunscreen were probably the most important things you could ever get in a care package. And the USO is a conduit for Americans who want to support our service members wherever they are to get those care packages, get those supplies, and get that love and that taste of home sometimes to our service members, no matter where they are. And right now, through obviously in the theater of conflict and up into Europe, where all service members pass through on their way to the conflict zones, the USO stands side by side with our service members and their families, keeping that connection alive.
What was the most emotional moment you've witnessed through the organization and your time in it?
I would be remiss to try to single out one, but I can tell you, I guess I would focus on the big and the small. It's always overwhelming when you see a deployment or a homecoming, and the emotion of the connection of the families and the service members to one another and to their community. But on the other end of the extreme, some of the most moving experiences that I've witnessed and that I've actually been a beneficiary of have been the one or two service members who come home late at night, say at O'Hare Airport, and the USO tracks these arrivals and shows up with signs and volunteers and banners saying "Welcome home" for a single service member, sometimes walking off an airplane, and knowing that they don't expect that. Years and years ago, too many years ago, that was me walking off an airplane in uniform completely unexpectedly to see someone with the USO banner with the American flag saying "Welcome home." And those could be from anywhere in the world. It could be a long training cycle. It could be a deployment into a combat zone. It could be a training mission somewhere far away or a humanitarian mission. And when your fellow Americans, or even better, your family, are there to say "Welcome home, thank you for what you've done, thank you for your service," that never gets old.
Have there been moments where the USO was there for someone at exactly the right time?
Absolutely. Again, it's hard to single out some. I'll lean into one of the most popular USO programs right now, and that is the USO Canine program. We all know the power of canine service animals in many respects, both for injured service members and others, as well as from the emotional therapy, emotional service dogs. We have a fantastic cadre of USO canine volunteers, and without question or exception, these canine volunteers seek out the individuals who may be in crisis or need intuitively. And it's almost the best example where the humans don't have to even get involved. And you watch a canine seek out the service member, kind of stick by their side as long as they need to. And then you hear the story of why. Oftentimes, service members sharing something maybe they're going through or struggling with. And those are those magic moments. So for me, being able to put that in play and resource that work and connect with these amazing selfless human handlers and the humans of these amazing canines is something that we'll look forward to doing for years to come.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Chris, I'd like to share a story, I hope you don't mind,
Not at all.
of how you and the USO really touched our family and helped out. I called Chris, and Chris, you took the call and you said, I mentioned to you we were going to have a celebration of life for my mother-in-law, mm-hmm. who was a World War II nurse. Mm-hmm. And, she was in the service for a couple of years. Her records were burned. We had unfortunately, burned at her home, but there was a
California wildfire.
Right.
During the California wildfire in San Diego. Mm. But also there were some records that were burned in St. Louis too.
Right.
So there wasn't really a lot on my mother-in-law, Ray's grandma. And you said, well, let me put you in touch with Mike Magnetta. Mm-hmm. Mike may have some connections at local VFW in Fallbrook, and maybe can help research this and see if we can get a celebration for your mother-in-law, an honor guard celebration, an honor guard memorial, I think is the correct explanation for it. And, Mike was great. He said, Ray, I'll look it up. He knew somebody that could look up the records, and there was nothing for Marion. So now we're about a month away from the celebration of life, and I'm trying to do this for the family. And Mike said, you know what? I'm going to put you in touch with the local VFW. And sure enough, Tim Kirk, who went through Great Lakes and knew a lot of the same people that I believe that Mike did and you did as well, was able to track some records down. And sure enough, the day or the night before, he said, we're going to have an honor guard there for your mother-in-law and for your family. Right. And they showed up, and it was a fitting celebration memorial for my mother-in-law. And so I thank you personally and the USO for that.
It was absolutely our pleasure. I'm blessed to work with an amazing team of staff and volunteers. And when you have served in the military, you have connections and friends everywhere. People come from where they started. Sometimes they go back there. Sometimes they land somewhere else. But that network of networks, if you will, is something that's a privilege to bring into play in those circumstances. And I'll share with you, my mom served in the Women's Army Corps, same time frame as a nurse. And so in a way, it was a little bit personal. I lost my mom years ago, and did not have the opportunity to do a tribute for her service at the time of her burial. And so for me, it was a special moment to be able to help bring that to life. And there'll be many, many more of those where you, like we said, and we've talked before, when you have resources at your fingertips and a need arises or crosses your line of sight, being able to index on that is a privilege. And we're just really grateful we were able to help bring that to life for you.
Thank you.
That was, she was my grandmother, and I thought that was just so cool that you guys, I'll remember that for the rest of my life, that just how much the organization, because now it's personal for me too. And you being a part of that and helping out with that was remarkable. So thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
She was so proud of her service. She was 98 when she passed. And there wasn't a time that went by. She had nursing care at the end. And she would recall her days in the military being a nurse. And she would relay that to the nurses that were caring for her. And she was very proud and talked about it all the time.
The impact of those moments, that humanity, as you reflect on how proud your mother-in-law was of her service. I happen to have I have two daughters. My eldest daughter is currently serving as a nurse in the United States Army.
Wow.
And the difference in the roles that people play in service are also something not really known to people. I think that a lot of folks think of our military service members and the active combat, for lack of a better term, that they might be engaged in. But there are so many jobs in the United States military across all the branches, and I think the probably the most impactful are those that work in the medical field, who are there at the worst moments of someone's experience, the most tragic moments sometimes. They are oftentimes the heroes of the moment, if you will. Combat medics in particular have received more medals of honor for their heroism in the line of duty than any other occupation in the United States military, because they're there taking care of the people who are engaged in the conflict or the duty, whatever it might be. And so when I think of those, our moms, our mothers-in-law, our daughters, our sons who are engaged in that line of work in uniform, and candidly in our communities, our first responders to the same extent, they deserve our ultimate respect.
Absolutely.
Have you ever met any particularly memorable service members?
So many. I have been privileged in the last decade plus of my career working in military and veterans affairs, to have proximity to some amazing people who've achieved amazing things. The pinnacle of that are those, again, who've been recognized with our nation's highest honor for valor in military service, the Congressional Medal of Honor, to have shaken the hands of these humble individuals who did the most in the most challenging circumstances for their fellow service members. And without question, they're also the most humble individuals. We're blessed to have a couple Medal of Honor recipients who live in our midst, and being able to spend time with them. Those individuals are the best of the best, if you'll say. I think it's simpler than that, though. There's a saying in amongst military members where someone might have, for myself, for example, I did not go into harm's way, I did not deploy into combat during the 14 years that I wore the uniform. But someone said to me once, "But you raised your hand." And I don't think I'm worthy of that tribute because I did not have to do the hard work that many of my friends and colleagues did. But every American who has raised their hand in service to one another in any form, in the extreme, whether it be military service or police officers and first responders who do it day to day in our own communities, or community members who step up in service for one another in one way or another, everyone who is selfless by nature and commitment deserves the respect of their fellow community members and Americans. So that's something that I'm grateful to be able to contribute to that community and be inspired by the community to do more.
Chris, it's very interesting that you are a family member of a military service, and now your family, your daughters are in the one or two?
One of the two, yes.
One of the two are in the service. Why do you think that is?
I think that's inherent. I'm looking at the both of you, you in front of me. We follow in the footsteps of the people who inspire us. And oftentimes those are our family members, our parents, our grandparents. For me, that was certainly modeled by my father. I lost him when I was a young teen, and in a way it was a tribute to him when I enlisted in the military, the example that he set. I think that knowing that the majority of service members currently serving in the United States military did have a service member from their family serve before them is emblematic and evidential of that. What is modeled for you is what you pursue. If you pick up on the service sacrifice and the example set by someone who came before you, it's almost always that person in your family who may have set that example first. It's also about knowledge, knowing that the United States military is a force for good in the world. And in almost most circumstances, it's not directly engaged in a military conflict. It's humanitarian nature, protecting the waterways for commerce worldwide, really noble missions that are in service to the entire world, again, as a force for good. And when called upon to do the extreme and engage in combat, the United States military obviously is prepared to do that and also do that as an additional way of being a force for good. So the more you know about that and the more you know about what happens in that space, then I think the more apt you might be to consider that pathway for yourself. So for those of us who grew up with that right in front of us, it's an easy choice.
Well, I'm sure you were a good example. I could tell by your history and what you've done now. You're a living example of what it means to be a great father, I'm sure, and a great patriot. 'Cause,
I appreciate that, right?
You keep the work going.
And we try to pay it forward. That to me is at this point, watching our young Americans step forward and raise their hand, as we watch young Americans graduate, earning the right to be called a sailor in the world's finest Navy right here in our backyard, almost every single week, 50 weeks out of the year. Almost 50,000 young Americans will become sailors as they pass through Naval Station Great Lakes. And the USO will stand by their side as they arrive here and as they depart and wherever they go in the world.
Awesome.
Now, Chris, you've spent years serving people who have dedicated their lives to serving others. If you could leave our listeners with one challenge this week, one simple way they could make someone else's road a little easier, what would it be?
I would say take a moment to think about and acknowledge, passively or actively, the individuals who've raised their hand in service to our nation. We have those inflection points throughout the year. Memorial Day, we recognize those who we've lost in service to our nation. Veterans Day, we acknowledge the service of anyone who served in the United States military. Armed Forces Day is carved out to specifically recognize those currently serving right now. But those are not the only moments of the year that we should think about those individuals who raised their hand in service to us all, literally put their life on the line, if asked to, for us. And I think whether you see someone, we live in a military community here, and if you see someone in uniform, even just nodding your head, saying thank you, shaking their hand. I love to buy a meal when I see someone at a restaurant and pick up the tab. If you have the means to say thank you and acknowledge someone, whatever that might be, those moments are appreciated. When I was wearing the uniform, having someone walk up and say thank you for what you're doing, it's a little awkward, to be honest, but it's definitely appreciated. And I think reflecting back again on the community, Chicagoland coming together in support of the USO, and which is directly in support of our troops, reminding people why that matters, as you do so well, convening communities and like-minded individuals and organizations to step up and do just a little more. So those are ways I think, what I leave with everyone is think about our service members, think about those that are in harm's way, pray for them, for their healthy return from their missions, and tell people why it matters.
Thank you, Chris.
My pleasure.
The model year-end sales event is here at Ray Chevrolet, and now's the time to find your new ride. Expect huge savings and incredible deals, like 0% financing for 60 months on brand new Chevrolet models. With our huge selection, you're sure to find the perfect ride. But the deals won't last long, and you won't want to miss these savings. So hurry into the model year-end sales event at Ray Chevrolet in Fox Lake, or shop raychevrolet.com. Serving the community since 1963. Together, let's drive.
On select models, to qualified buyers with approved credit, monthly payment based on $1,667 per month per $1,000 borrowed, plus tax, title, and license. Photo for illustration purposes only and may not reflect actual selling vehicle. May not be combined with other offers. See dealer for details. Offer expires August 31st, 2026.
So, Dad, we just spoke with Chris over at USO. Could you tell us a little bit about our involvement with the USO, with it used to be called Barbecue for the Troops. Now it's called Drive for the Troops. Tell us the origin story. How did that happen?
Well, our family is very connected to the military. My father was a National Guard person.
Your uncles?
My uncles were 2 World War II vets. But besides that, being an American, I'm very proud of our country and
a lot of pride.
A lot of pride. So I was on a board for the Chicago Auto Trade Association. And the USO of Illinois presented a concept that had been done in another place. I think it was Colorado. I'm not quite sure the town. But they said, these car dealers got involved with raising money for their local USO in their state. Would you guys want to do that? And they called it Barbecue for the Troops. And I think when I was on the board of the Chicago Auto Trade Association, there was 8 or 9 dealers from around the Chicagoland area. And there was all types of dealers, every different brands. And
what year was this?
Probably the mid 2012, 2015, somewhere in that area.
It predated me, I think, starting full-time after college. So it probably 2012?
Probably. So they made a presentation to all of us. We talked about it in committee, executive committee, which I was on. And they said, well, what do you guys think? We discussed it. And a couple of us really felt strongly about it and brought it forward to the larger board, and we approved it. And that first year, it started out where we launched it and got quite a few dealers throughout the Chicagoland area to participate in the program. It's been something that, participation varies amongst dealers. Not all dealers do it, but we've done it every year, and we've done it. We take it very seriously, as you know, and we really get involved. You were great in doing some things with Jeep.
Oh yeah, like we had our this last one that we just did.
Right.
We have a World War II Jeep, like a Willys, like an actual one, and we parked it out front along with a tent. We had a barbecue. We had music. We had a patriotic celebration as well. We had, we did the Pledge of Allegiance. It's America's 250th birthday, right? So we had to do it real big for this last one, and it was pretty special.
No question. It was really fun. This one, I think we had the DJ was great. But more importantly, the community comes together. We had most times we have a mayor of a surrounding town or our town. This year, Steve Henley from Volo was good enough.
Former Navy vet.
That's right. Said a few words and just was great in telling about his involvement and what the USO of Illinois meant for him and the support that it gives. And, the USO is, I think as another thing we kind of added up over the years, we've given close to $60,000 with in donations. We've collected and participated in donations of close to $60,000. And that's a point of pride for, I know, everybody at the dealership. All of our employees give generously. We match oftentimes.
Test drives, too. We donate for test drives as well.
And a lot of our customers, we have a QR code on a lot of our social media and on our website. So if you'd like to give, continue to give. It'll be on our website.
We'll provide a link to as well on this episode if you feel you want to donate. I think it's really important. The USO does so much for so many military families. It's a cause that everybody can get behind.
One of the things that the USO does, and you were in college, you saw the pictures. You couldn't come home for it, but Uncle Joe, World War II vet, and Uncle Nick, World War II vet, we were able to get them both at the United Center at the same time on the ice. And the USO helped us do that and to recognize them. And we had our whole family there. A lot of cousins were there. And, Uncle Joe was in a wheelchair at the time, but Uncle Nick was there saluting. And it was just a great, great afternoon, evening. And to have two brothers on the ice being recognized for their service. And the USO made that happen. So it's very special to a lot of people. And that's a good example of one of the small things that they do, not small, but one of the things that they do to honor all the soldiers that, maybe didn't get recognized because a lot of them didn't. And that's one way they do it. But they also bring a sense of home, to all these people. And I know Chris was great in talking about it. And
networking, right?
Yeah. It's part of the connection to the United States, and the USO has been there since a long, long time. And during World War II and these big events that happen, but also in peacetime, I'm sure it's lonely for these guys and gals. They go away, they're a long way from home, some of them, and it makes a difference. So if you can, please give, and the money gets in the hands of local USO of Illinois and the troops and their families. Makes a difference.
I agree. So, Dad, we got a little extra time. Something that's kind of been, I know, on my mind.
Sure.
A lot of consumers' minds, especially lately, affordability for cars. And I think one of the things that makes a new car very affordable is leasing. Can you tell us a little bit about leasing and how that works?
Well, leasing is a great way to get into a new vehicle and save money per month. It's oftentimes much less in down payment. You can adjust your down payment according to what you want. You can come in with very little down, or you can put more money down and design the payment the way you'd like it. You can get the payment substantially lower than a traditional purchase. And people will say, well, I don't own it. But if you take a traditional 5, 6, 7 year lease or a purchase, the bank owns it currently, right? So
correct.
It gives us a different way to go.
Shorter term, shorter commitment.
The term is normally 36 months.
Correct.
So 36 months, you're in warranty most of the time, right? If not all the time.
And some of these cars come with prepaid maintenance too. So your cost of ownership over that 36 months, which is 3 years, and ties into the warranty. In some cases, some cars have that prepaid maintenance, so it all kind of ties in. Your cost of ownership of that vehicle is minimal.
Think about it. You're always under warranty. You get the latest and greatest vehicle. You have every option at the end, lease end option. And that's what I think people need to know about.
That you have options.
You
really have 3 options.
One, right? You can turn it back. Your needs change. You want a bigger vehicle. You want a different vehicle. You can turn it in. You could trade it in. You can purchase it. Those are all available to you with a lease.
You have a lot more flexibility.
You absolutely do. And that's all in your control. And, you know, that's what's great about it's short term. It's kind of like the cell phone, right? Same idea.
A lot of people lease cell phones.
Absolutely. And why do they do that? Technology changes, want the latest and greatest as soon as they can because
They come out with a new iPhone every year.
our vehicles change as well. You know, the technology that's coming, as you know, Ray, we have blind spot warning in many of our cars.
Well, some of them are pretty close to self-driving now.
Automatic braking, OnStar, the telematics, the screens, these are always getting updated, and fuel efficiency is going through the roof. So, you know, to get into a vehicle every 2 to 3 years is a great advantage for a lot of people, and get a lower payment all at the same time. So that's why leasing, all the options are in your hands if you lease it.
And the average person, and they've got leasing programs for this too, average person drives roughly 15,000 miles a year. And we have 15,000 mile a year leases. And there's folks that just basically they live within 20 miles of where they work, and some put only 10,000 miles on their car a year. And we've got programs for that too. So we've got a wide variety of leasing options.
And you can build in any lease mileage within reason. I think it's capped at, I don't know the mileage.
Depending on the bank program.
Right.
Because there's a couple different ones.
And is there a little bit of a surcharge for high miles? Probably. You know, in all cases there is. But there would be a surcharge on your car if you put high mileage on your car, right?
Exactly, with a repair bill.
Repair bill and the depreciation of the mileage.
Correct.
So it hits both. You're absolutely right. And so leasing still gives you that flexibility as before, those reasons.
And if you plan to purchase the car too, and you go over your miles, you're not going to receive penalty if you plan to purchase it.
That's right.
Outside of a 10,000 mile a year lease, a 15, there's 12,000 as well. But also beyond those mileage, isn't there a one-pay lease too?
One-pay lease you're correct. One-pay lease, you could pay all the payments up front and get a discount. Technically, you pay it up front, pay even less per month because you paid it all in one lump sum, and you drive the vehicle for 2 years, 3 years, and you walk away. So that's another flexibility option that we can provide when somebody comes in to talk about leasing. We can give them all those options, and there's a lot of different ways that people can tailor it to their needs.
Yeah, there's so many options with leasing. You know, our goal from this conversation was just to demystify some of the, you know, oh, hey, I don't want to lease, or, you know, I want to just buy it. But we wanted to just talk about some of the benefits of leasing, show how it can be affordable, show how it could fit into your lifestyle. And I appreciate you sharing some of your knowledge with us, Dad. Be sure to stay connected, explore our inventory, schedule service, and learn more about everything happening at Ray Auto Group using the links below. Follow the podcast, join the conversation by liking, commenting, and sharing your thoughts. And as a listener of The Road Ahead, you'll receive a free oil change from Ray Chevrolet or Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Details are linked below. Follow Ray Chevrolet and Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram on social media for updates, clips, tips, and future episodes. Thanks for listening to The Road Ahead. We'll see you next time.